Hello, everyone. My name is Galen Wixon, and I am here for our next episode of the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra's ClefNotes. And today I will be talking to you about some chamber music. Our next two performances that we'll be presenting in Lubbock include chamber music. And so I guess one way to start the chat today is what is chamber music? Why do we call it that? Well, in its broadest definition, chamber music is music that is made specifically for a chamber, a smaller room. Sort of think about a living room in your home in times farther back, perhaps a salon or maybe a receiving room where might have been a piano, but definitely set up for a small group of instruments so that people could hear music while they either conversed and greeted people or sat down for a more formal performance. And we have to think about what a household would have been like in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries without all of the modern conveniences that we have now. Music is really one of the primary forms of entertainment when people were gathered. So to have chamber music meant that you were having music during another event. Now, how do we define chamber music now? Well, it would be a small ensemble. It could be a single person performing on their instrument, such as a cellist playing some Bach suites, or it could be an instrumentalist and a pianist, or it could be a trio, a quartet, a quintet, etc. And so this is so broad of a term called chamber music that sometimes people are confused by what we mean by that. But we can also mean a small orchestra. Sometimes you hear the term sinfonietta. That would be another word for a small orchestra. But all of that is chamber music in how we define it now, as opposed to a symphony orchestra, which is a full-size group of 60, 70, 80 musicians. A chamber orchestra, I would say limiting it to 50 musicians would be generous. More often, we're looking at 30, 35 musicians maximum that we would still call the chamber music. Here in Lubbock, we perform chamber music at both the Crickets Theater at Buddy Holly Hall, and then we do our sound series at the Luca Ice House. Both of those venues are incredibly different. The Crickets Theater being, world-class acoustics, one of the best acoustics I've probably ever heard in my life, and then the Ice House being a black box, really theater space, really something utilized in the past for something else, now created into this or transformed into this black box theater. Not necessarily great acoustics, but for our purposes, it works really well because it's a nice blank template for us to work from. We bring musicians in for the sound performances. Small ensembles, typically those are no more than 20 people involved, and so we'll have a small stage, we'll do lots of lighting. We amplify every musician in our sound concerts so that we can balance the sound very carefully. The other feature about sound is that it's curated. We have experts in the field that pull different pieces of music together to create this overall exciting whole of a concert that hopefully is thematic, and when you put all the parts together, it gives you this nice emotional story arc, is what we're aiming for. The other part of the sound series that is intentional is the way we formatted the concert timings. So we originally envisioned that concert to have 3 parts of 20 minutes each. 10 minutes each with a break in between them. And so these are rather short sets of music. Then we take the break. And the reason we do that is because we play contemporary music during sound concerts. And so it's music that, does take some mental attention. It does take some mental acuity to sort of process what you're listening to. We want to give our listeners a break after those, rather interesting but challenging pieces of music to give people a chance to reflect on what they heard, to converse, to refresh their drink and their snack, and then come back for another short set of music. And we do that 3 times during the night, and we end up with something I think is very satisfying. So our next sound performance is actually our next concert, and it is coming up on February 25th at the Luca Ice House. This concert will feature some very interesting works. It's a concert of quartets and quintets, and will feature composers. I think by and large they're all living. We have Alex Shapiro, who's 63 years old. Paul Moravec, he's 67. Jesse Montgomery, very young. She's only 43 years old. Miguel Del Aguila, and he is 67. We have Roxana Panufnik, she's 56, and Jennifer Higdon is 62. The one non-living composer on this concert is Louise Farrance, and she's a French composer, lived from 1804 to 1875. She was known as a pianist, but also a fine composer and a teacher. She's very interesting because she entered the Paris Conservatory when women weren't actually allowed to enroll in the composition program. And so she had to get her composition lessons as a private student, not as an enrolled student of the conservatory. So that's how she learned her composition. She was a very well-known pianist, very excellent pianist by reputation, and her compositions, I think, were mostly solo piano, but her one noted chamber work that we perform the most is a nonette, a piece for 9 musicians. And so at this concert, we'll be combining the forces of a woodwind quintet and a string quartet in creating this nonette. And how we've constructed the sets will be for Louise Farrance's work, the nonette, to be broken up across these 3 sets, and you'll hear a couple of the movements of this nonette during that concert. So it should be a really interesting work. Her music, I would call it very typical romantic, maybe early romantic music along the lines of Mendelssohn or early Beethoven. Really, really beautiful music, very expressive, and altogether a great addition to this group of composers that we pulled together. Some of the other composers I spoke of, Shapiro, Moravec, Montgomery, these composers are all, I would call them eclectic. They do all sorts of different musical combinations. For Alex Shapiro, we're going to hear a string quartet called 5 Squared from 2008. I had a hard time finding a recording of this piece, and so I'm kind of excited to hear what our string quartet with the Lubbock Symphony will do with this. After a string quartet, we'll have the Paul Moravec India Atlantic Impromptu. It's a woodwind quintet, is written in 2007. And then Jesse Montgomery will have Voodoo Dolls, composed in 2008, again with a string quartet. And then we'll create the nonette with the wind quintet and the string quartet. And we'll have the third movement, the scherzo movement of the nonette in E-flat major by Louise Farrance. The second set of music will include a Sambiata, Opus 135 by Miguel Del Aguila. It's a woodwind quintet. And then The Faithful Gazelle, written in 2022 by Roxana Panufnik. And that is for clarinet and string quartet. And that should be a really interesting. I love Panufnik's music. It's very expressive, very simple, very transparent. So this should be a beautiful performance for us. In the third part, we'll have the very well-known American composer Jennifer Higdon, her autumn music from 1995, which is performed with a woodwind quintet. And then we'll close with the last movement of the Florence Nonette in E flat major. It's the last movement starts adagio and ends allegro, and again we'll combine the forces of the quintet and the quartet. So this should be a really interesting performance. The performance does take place at the Lucca Ice House on February 25th at 7:30 p.m. You can get tickets by going to our website, lubbocksymphony.org, or by calling 806-762-1688. On March 28th, we'll have our last chamber music concert of the season with the Lubbock Chamber Orchestra performing at the Crickets Theater, conducted by Eric Allen. We'll have a guest artist, our principal clarinetist in the Lubbock Symphony, David Shea. David will be performing the very well-known Copland Clarinet Concerto. The Clarinet Concerto was written in 1948. It's just a really fun gymnastic piece for the clarinet and the orchestra that you'll hear. Other works that will appear on the concert on March 28th will include the Richard Strauss Suite in B-flat major, the Schubert Symphony No. 8. As we all know, that is the unfinished symphony. It's literally unfinished, so if you think that that's a gimmick word, he ended it with three movements, didn't finish it, and so you end in this kind of quiet manner. But we love the piece. The opening is so well known, and it is well worth hearing. And I'm pretty certain, if my memory serves me right, there have been attempts to write the fourth movement and finish the work, but of course, nobody can write a melody like Franz Schubert. He's so insightful, and his melodies and the way he does phrases tell such a wonderful emotional story. Nobody can really match his musical stylings to make an authentic last movement for that symphony. So I think that Schubert's work with three movements stands very well on its own. Finally, we'll end with an overture of all things. We usually think of an overture as something to begin the opera or the evening, don't we? But for this concert, we'll be performing Jacques Offenbach's Orpheus in the Underworld, and so that's going to be a very exciting way to end this outstanding concert. Now, again, we go back to the definition of chamber music. This orchestra that we've formed has something like 38 players involved. It's a pretty big group, and it's, I know that they're all very excited to play these works that we don't get to play that often on the Lubbock Symphony stage. So, again, please join us on March 28th at Crickets Theater, 7:30 p.m., and once again, to get tickets, you can go to our website, lubbocksymphony.org, or by calling 806-762-1688. Other concerts that are happening during the season, between the chamber concerts, we'll have a full symphony performance on March 8th with guest conductor Peter Bay and guest pianist John Kimura Parker. If you hear me slip and say Jackie Parker, that's his nickname. He is one of the great American pianists working today, and he'll be playing the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 1 in B-flat major. You really don't want to miss this performance. It's such an amazing piece, and he just does it so incredibly well. I think everybody's going to be standing up well before the end of that work. And that's the way we'll end that concert. The first half of the concert will be taken up by Carl Nielsen's Symphony No. 1, Opus 7. And that's going to be a really wonderful way to start that concert. And then the second half, of course, will be taken up with the Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto. So please join us that evening. Before that concert starts, out in the lobby of Buddy Holly Hall, we'll have a performance by Lubbock's own Cap Rockers. Yes, it's a local pop band. We want to have people join us in the lobby to enjoy some pop music, maybe a beverage or a snack in the Grand Hall area of the lobby at Buddy Holly Hall. We've done this a few times. We're trying to create a new atmosphere for symphonic music by having people enjoy maybe pop music before the concert, and then go into the hall and have the spectacular symphony performance of the Nielsen and the Tchaikovsky to end their evening. So it'll be fun. That little concert out in the lobby starts at 6 o'clock in the evening. We'll go until 7, and then we'll have that 30-minute break. You can go into the Buddy Holly Hall, Helen DeWitt Jones Theater, and get comfortable for the performance at 7:30. We want to also invite you to our final Masterworks concert of the year on April 5th with David Cho conducting the always incredible Carmina Burana with the full orchestra, the Lubbock Chorale, the chancel choir of First United Methodist Church, and a boy chorus. So the Carmina Burana is kind of an odd work. I mean, it tells sort of the lessons of what happens when you get into things like too much drinking, too much gambling, things of that nature, and sort of teaches you these lessons through an odd sort of mix of Latin and some other language that he kind of made up. So it's a really interesting tale, though, and the music is so famous and so well known. You really won't want to miss all of the forces assembled on stage for that concert. In the first half, we'll hear Erwin Schulhoff's Symphony No. 2, fairly short pieces, only 23 minutes long, and we'll have, of all things, with the orchestra, an alto saxophone as well. You don't get to hear an alto sax with the symphony orchestra that often, and so we're thrilled to be able to offer this rather unusual piece for you. This will take place on April 5th, again at Buddy Holly Hall. As always, call us for tickets, 806-762-1688, or go to the Lubbock Symphony website, lubbocksymphony.org. To wrap up the season, on June 7th at Buddy Holly Hall, we will have The Concert, a tribute to ABBA. The group that does this tribute concert to ABBA comes from Denmark. They have traveled all over the world performing this show. I've seen bits and pieces when I was considering the program. They are going to be outstanding. So please join us on June 7th. Wear your best disco outfit and be ready to party with us at Buddy Holly Hall. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of ClefNotes. My name is Galen Wixon, and it has been a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you.